Hello, this is Joseph Gillette Sr. with globalintelhub.com, and today's topic is Green Mountain, Alabama. So at the last GSIC, or the Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference, Dr. Michael Salla revealed the location of what has long been rumored to be a secret, now not so secret, underground military installation where the secret space program exists. And it's right near NASA in Huntsville, Alabama, which is interesting, which is right near Project Paperclip, which is also interesting. And this has been rumored for a long time. There were reports a long time ago that there was a secret space program underground near NASA. So you had the NASA Space Center and then the underground thing going on, and they were very close. You could drive there in 10-15 minutes. So we can get into the backstory. I want to focus here on my trip down there. So the conference was in September, October-ish last year. So I took the family to NASA during the winter break. So it was winter time, and it was a great experience. We stayed at the Westin, and it was near NASA, and we went to NASA for the day, and they have some amazing exhibits there. And it was interesting in NASA because it's kind of, they don't so much like how SpaceX is taking over a lot of the production, but it's always cool to see NASA and interact with them, and at the visitor center, and you can see real rockets and real hardware that was used, and they have a museum with some history there, which was super cool. And I also recently watched this thing about the history of Huntsville and the Germans that were brought there, and this guy had interviewed a real, it was a girl who came under Paperclip, and she was still alive, and probably still is now, but she's pretty old, 90-something. That guy's mom, I think, or grandma. But anyway, there's a huge community of Paperclip Germans in Huntsville, and of course that's a long time ago, so they've been diluted and mixed with the locals, and so they're not flag-waving Germans like they were in the 1950s. Not that they were then, but they're now kind of, you couldn't distinguish them from Americans. Of course, at the Westin, at breakfast, there were two well-dressed German guys speaking in German language. It's an interesting place. So we went down there. This location is a place where Dr. Michael Salla has his best witness is a military insider who goes by the handle JP. And JP was in this location, and JP is not allowed to say where anything is. So Dr. Michael Salla revealed the location based on his research, right? He doesn't have some evidence, but based on his research. And I'm going to show you in this video. It might be a little long, but if you're interested in the research and information, I would stick with it, because I want to go step by step over my whole trip and the process and everything else. So first of all, let's just look on a map. So this is Green Mountain. Green Mountain is, as far as I can understand, it's part of the city of Huntsville. And first, let's look at a terrain map, which is what we have now. So you can see this dot that I'm going to click on. So that's where you can park, and where I parked, and then you can walk around. There's a lot of different trails. You can walk around this whole area. It's an amazing place, great energy. This is a pretty steep cliff, so you can see it's 1,200 feet. And then this is 800, and then it's a pretty steep valley, and it V's down into these streams. And so what's interesting, I mean, the first thought is there were other people there, not so many, but there were a few. I mean, it was winter. Beautiful place, great place for a hike. You can look at some of these pictures, and we'll go through my pictures soon. But this is pretty much what it looks like. If there's something underneath here, it's got to be pretty deep. I mean, I can't imagine that even if it's at night, there could be people here walking around, that there are spacecraft taking off and landing. But based on some of the technology these things have, it probably can teleport to other locations. So it's not necessarily like an airport. Like when we think of a spaceport or a facility, we think of like an airport. Well, there's going to be some evidence of them coming and going. Well, maybe not. And JP said there's like an invisibility shield around it. That can be, or it can be that's kind of a metaphor to protect the real technology, which is that they have the ability to jump, so that you wouldn't see them coming and going. So they could jump like from the facility underground in the mountain to just a nearby point, and then they go to wherever they're going. Maybe. I have no information. I just was there, and I'm just saying it's hard to imagine that this beautiful nature preserve is right on top of underground military installation with spaceships. It's a beautiful place. I didn't get to some of the waterfalls, but it's a pretty big area. So let's go back to the map. Okay, that's the terrain view. Now, if we zoom out, let's go to the map view. If we zoom out, you can see these dots here. Here's Huntsville. Okay, so it's just here's the Redstone Arsenal, which is where they actually build the rockets and ships. And here's the U.S. Space Center, where I visited. And I stayed at the Westin just across. I mean, you could have walked there, except you're getting on the highway and stuff. It was right there. Now, what's interesting for me is that if you look at this, all flows. If you can see the mouse moving, this is all like a plane, and it's flat in the city. And then when you drive into the Green Mountain area, you're going up, and then all of a sudden when you're coming back, you go down, and then there's city. So it's like you come down this hill, and then there's like nothing. Well, if you come from this other way, and then there's just like city. But it's right near. I mean, if the caves and cavern systems are natural forming cavern systems that were found or built by ancient aliens or some ancient advanced civilizations, whatever they may be, maybe they follow, and there seems to be some evidence that they do follow some of the ridge lines on mountains. And the point is that not only is it close to NASA, but it seems like there's a geologic connection. Like it's all part of the same area. And if you take the map further, so this is green. Well, first of all, let me say that what's interesting is there are several housing communities built all around this mountain. So these guys, I mean, if there were UFOs coming and going, there's people on their back porches every night. So yeah, I mean, the invisibility shield is there, but it's surrounded by communities, and they're very nice houses. Some of the communities are new construction, particularly these ones. You can see they're kind of the cookie cutter style, and it's all around. So if you're hiking on the trails, you hike close enough to the edge, you see someone's backyard. So that's super interesting. And that's another place I'd like to explore and possibly maybe get some info from. I didn't talk to any locals or anything like that. It was kind of a short trip. But that would be another data point if someone wanted to kind of explore the area on what we're allowed to. But so yeah, I mean, if you work for NASA or you're a scientist or whatever, you're a contractor, or you're part of the growing Huntsville aerospace industry that's surrounding NASA now, you have all the defense contractors and aerospace companies there. This is a good place to have a house. Whether you're aware of that underneath there's this facility or not. So now, if this is the Green Mountain area, now when we go up, there's this Blevins Gap Nature Preserve, which is another one. Then you've got another community. It's a beautiful golf course. And these communities, this whole area is just really nice. and you keep going north, north, north until you hit this other area, Monte Sano State Park, which is also very interesting. And these communities here is where the Germans lived. And you can see some of their houses from the 50s that haven't been renovated and built into new houses. And some of their kids, and perhaps some of them, are still living there. Monte Sano is a very interesting park itself, and we went hiking there. There's a Japanese garden there. And it was winter, so there wasn't this effect. It was a little barren, the flowers weren't blooming and stuff like that. But the Buddhists and the Japanese cultures usually select high places or high energy places. So all these things are interesting, that they seem to be all geologically connected. I mean, if you zoom out, it's all around Huntsville. And I mean, you can plot, there's a downtown Huntsville area where there's this water supply that it used to be, this fountain. And I bet if you look at the planning of Huntsville, it seems like it's all connected. You know, like this is the downtown area. This would be like in the center of the NASA, Monte Sano, Green Mountain. I mean, it's not difficult to connect dots in a town like Huntsville. It's what you call a hotspot. In other words, it's all here. It's all connected. The point is that there's a lot of interesting things going on. And you had the Germans living here. These Germans were not just any Germans. They were working with the German government during Hitler. And there was a lot of esoteric and occult connections there as well. And we don't have a lot of evidence as far as that. But there was this one guy, Clark McClelland, who wrote an excellent book on secret NASA, and then many say that he was suicided, but on his deathbed, he gave the manuscript to his friend, who published the book. It's definitely interesting. He was a space command operator, or spacecraft operator, SCO. It was a military title that was either unique to him or he was the first one. But he interacted with these paperclip scientists on a day-to-day basis at NASA in Florida. And he smoked, and von Braun smoked, and some of the higher up guys smoked. And he used to have these chats with Wernher von Braun, and you know, he's very careful he didn't want to spook him and come out and ask him some things, but he asked von Braun about some things, and von Braun said, yeah, we had help, and they're from Aldebaran. And this is all in the book, so if you want to know more about that, you can research that, but it's a great book. And at the time, von Braun was living here, where we're looking at on the screen. So as you are driving up to this Monte Sano State Park, it's an interesting drive, and it's a very nice suburb. And I have a map they gave me. It's an Alabama state park, and you can download this. I'll put a link in the article, but it's a very popular park. It's a very beautiful park, and these German scientists lived right behind it. And I'd like to think that, well, there's a number of things. One, is there a connection to Green Mountain? I mean, here are trails where, and I'll show you a couple things where it looks like an ancient site. So there's, I think, a few things going on. One, they live near this park. They probably spend a lot of time there. I know some of them, von Braun in particular, and I'm sure lots of them. They liked to go on walks on weekends, and especially if they were thinking about some big problems. And there's a planetarium called the Von Braun Planetarium, which is in Monte Sano State Park. Two, these places all seem to have some evidence of ancient ruins. And it's very ancient, meaning it doesn't look like Stonehenge or something like that. It's not so obvious, but there's a place near me in Tennessee, and it just doesn't look like artificial. Like it's not possible you can have these perfectly cubed shapes. And I'm sure there's sites like this all over the world, but in Montesano, there are some places like this. Let me just pull them up. Okay, look at this. Stone cut trail. So, yeah, I'm sure the archaeologists are going to say, oh, that's just natural formations. And I didn't walk through this part. I didn't get down there. It was winter and it was cold, and so we didn't get to. This is kind of on the outskirts of it's kind of a longer hike. I'll go next time in the summer, but it reminds me a lot like this place near where I live, where I've been lots of times. You can see here the trees in the middle. There's like these places where it's like either for water or for people, or it just seems like the stone was cut artificially. I found this in Green Mountain, and some other stones look like they were artificially cut, and I took pictures of those, and those are going to be in the video. But there's lots of this stone which just doesn't look like natural formations, and it's a beautiful place, so I definitely encourage anyone who's interested to visit to go have a look. So 3, is there a connection between ancient sites, the secret space programs, which may involve ETs, and these locations? Are they all connected, or are they selected because of their significance, because they have a high energy, or because of the underground sites, or all of the above? You know, what's going on? And I just want to bring up one other thing. So I'm going to Serpent Mound, hopefully this summer in the equinox. Serpent Mound is in Ohio. It's this snake monument. And Serpent Mound is near Wright-Patterson. Okay? And it's also near Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Point Pleasant, West Virginia is where there was a Mothman and a bridge collapsed and people died, and there's a movie with Richard Gere about it, the Mothman Prophecies. And you ask the local people and they will all say it's real. People who are involved in this situation that saw this Draco with red eyes, and it looked at people and killed them. It gave them cancer. And it matches up with a lot of stories from the Inner Earth. Draco, it had wings. How are all these things connected? And of course the Serpent Mound was an ancient site which, according to the tradition and the ancient lore, is that it had a crystal in its mouth which was activated during that time. Are all these sites connected underground, or are sites like this all kind of in one area which is high energy, it's on a ley line, or it has some kind of significance? So going back to Huntsville, let's do a couple other things before we go on. Oh, here's another interesting thing. So this, if you zoom out, this is a real estate thing where you can look property ownership. So this is the canyon here. And if you click on it, it's the Land Trust of Alabama. The Land Trust of Alabama. And then you've got these communities here. On one map, it said corporate. And I'm not sure what that means. But what's interesting is that there is here an Indian reservation. Just this kind of grayed out area, or orange color. It's called the Echota Cherokee. So let me just pull this up. So here it is. You see it easier on the real estate map. So these real estate maps are ownership maps. So if you zoom in, and you can get these in most counties in the United States, except New York and a couple places, and you can look at ownership, and you double click and you can get the ownership, and that's how I got this in the valley. It's the Land Trust of Alabama. See, Land Trust of North Alabama, Inc. So that's the government. So that means if there's an underground base here, the top is owned by the government, and they allow people to walk around and go hiking, which is nice, and there's a community near. But if you zoom out, this whole area here, it's Echota Cherokee lands. So there is a connection, and this is talked about by a lot of authors and researchers. And one interesting one is the Radu Sinamar series, where a lot of connection to the inner earth is actually connected to the Native American tribes and lands. And the reason for that is, well, number one, their lands are connected to the inner earth civilization, and historically there was a connection between the surface and inner earth civilizations, and then it was cut off by the Catholics in the mid-1500s. It was a great find by Dr. Michael Sala that discovered this connection by some German researcher, where before the 1500s there was open dialogue between cultures and civilizations, and the American Indians, the native people of the United States, would often have their land connected to these inner earth areas, or areas that perhaps there was tunnels or connections and portals in between the surface and the inner earth, and so on and so forth. And number two, what happens in an American Indian reservation is kind of a supra-legal territory. It's not like its own country, but it's also not part of the United States. It's kind of a weird thing they have going on, and that's why in a lot of Indian reservations you have gambling and no taxes and some other things going on. So they allow those to be open portals to the inner earth because they are protected, in fact, by the native tribes. And this one story by Radu Siminar talks about how on the this was more towards the west coast. It was in the Utah, Idaho area, where and Wyoming and near the Tetons, where these native tribes had active portals connecting to the inner earthers. So that's interesting too. I mean, the fact that we have a Cherokee-owned Cherokee lands next to where supposedly is this underground military base, which hosts a secret space program, which is right next to NASA. And Huntsville is Cave City. And if we zoom out on the map, it's just all one cave region going up through the mountains here into Kentucky. And this also goes down to Florida. This whole chain goes to northern Florida, this whole region. This is a whole region here. And there's many forests and caves, and it's interestingly not very populated. So that's kind of in a nutshell about this research. And let's click on a couple other pages, which I'm going to put in the in the article. There's the Green Mountain Trailhead information about the land trust. There's a trail map. We'll bring up the trail map. So here's the trail map. There was a more detailed one that they swapped out recently, interestingly. But this was the trail where I went, and I'm going to play the photos and videos after this. You can park here and follow. It's well marked. You can go on all these trails, and this is kind of on the top part of the canyon here, and then you can go around the canyon. There's another entrance on the other side where you can go, but you can literally go all around this, and it's not, once you're inside of this preserve, it doesn't say like any area is off limits. I mean, you can go off the trail. It's not there are no signs that say don't go off the trail like there are on Serpent Mountain. Serpent Mountain, it says do not walk on these mountains. Here, hikers typically stay on the trail, but the rules are not so strict. Like if you want to go hiking, pretty much this whole territory is for hikers, and it's 818 acres. So it's a beautiful area, and as we mentioned, it's surrounded by communities. So let's take one last look at it. So this is it. You park here, come in here. There's this Grotto Falls. It's just amazing. Really amazing. Great place for pets. And obviously, I'm going to say this with a grain of salt. You can feel the energy there. But I've been to a lot of places like this, and any mountain is going to have high energy, so certainly don't take that like a data point. I think what Dr. Sala has put together is 1,000 times more of a data point than saying you feel energy, because there's no way to quantify it. And you always have, anyone who has gone hiking or mountain climbing knows when you're climbing a mountain, when you're walking through the forest, you have a natural high. It's a dopamine effect from being out in nature, and you're connected to the soul of the planet, and you're just kind of one with the universe and with nature, like in a more natural state than like sitting in this room now surrounded by a bunch of computers. And we need it, but anyway, you do feel, I wouldn't say a presence so much as you just feel like this unusual peace. And the only time, I felt this unusual peace, and it's almost like, it's not love, but it's part of it. You feel kind of happy. It's hard to describe. You just feel at peace. It's not like a bright emotion's dull, but you feel good. You don't feel scared. You don't feel anxious. Like there are some other opposite things I felt in some other places to contrast it, which are very, like, you want to leave. You know, you just got this here, and in this other place in Tennessee, the Black Mountain in Tennessee, you just feel this calm. And here I was alone, but at the other place I took my kid, and he was playing like as if he was playing with other kids, but by himself. I mean, it was hard to describe, but he was going through this role-playing thing with sticks, and he never does that. You know, he was just like so happy, and we're all happy. And it was the sunset, and I have just hundreds of photos and videos from that day. And so it's a similar kind of feeling in this place, and it's very dramatic. Like, you don't have this, I mean, this bluff looks kind of sharp, this edge, but it's more like rolling, which you're going to see in the pictures. But it's a very, very intense thing, because you have a valley and it's a steep cliff and you've got some rivers, and so it's an amazing place. So I went there, I spent time, and it's open to the public, so anyone can go there. And that's what's cool about it. So the other entrance is down over here. There's a cave. Alum Cave Hollow. So you can come down from the bottom here, and I didn't do that. I went up from the top here, and you can just park and go along. And I didn't explore this community. Next time I also want to explore this community more. It's a beautiful place to live, I suppose. And around here, there are lots of interesting hiking areas, but this Green Mountain area, this is the most likely location of it. I don't know where it is, so I'm just using clues. But this area is the most undeveloped and remote, and there's a mountain on top. And the last thing I want to say, there isn't any direct evidence, but it looks a little bit like this mountain was, maybe not that the mountain was completely artificial or that it's a pyramid or something like that, but that there was some terraforming going on with this mountain. In other words, this Grotto Falls, the water flow is very low. It doesn't seem, if you look at the whole area, the mountain, the way that the rocks are laid and everything, it seems like there was some terraforming. Maybe it was topped off, maybe some rocks were brought, maybe just a little bit shaping up. I'm not saying that the whole thing is like a megalith, but it does seem like there's some evidence. And maybe I'm just seeing things. I'm a total skeptic, but I hopefully will find out from the other side to verify all this. And whether it's true or not, it's an amazing experience to go there, so I definitely recommend that. So now we're going to look at some videos and photos, and I'll do the photos first, and all the links to all this will be in the article. Okay, let's look at some of these photos. I have a little motion here. It's pretty eerie. You can see the fog. I don't know if that's common. It was December 2024, but you can see in the forest here, it's pretty clear. This was off the trail, but it probably has been cleared. It seems like the forest has been cleared. Here's some interesting things, like it's like rivets or some protrusions which are with lines, like they were cut. And here's some other cut marks. It can be cuts from anything, but it's weird. And you have these little holes. See these little holes? And then these little marks here, like as if something cut it. And this isn't hard stone. This isn't limestone. This is some kind of granite. And this was in the water, so, and there's actually two here. You can see kind of it forms a V, but these were not like they were randomly placed. There wasn't any, it didn't look like an organization. It just looked like they were artificially cut. I had my kid put his foot here so you could see how big it is. It's he's 8 years old. He wears a size 1 youth. So these rocks, there were lots of them. They were squarish, and they were near the water. Here's some more square edges. Lots of rocks with square edges. There's me. So that's the extent. We're going to play the videos. You can see, I'm just going to play them at the end here. We are in Green Mountain.
In Alabama.
In Alabama. Green Mountain, Alabama. So there we go. You can see in the background it's very foggy. So it was a cool experience. And you couldn't see down into the valley because you couldn't see the other side of the valley. It was so foggy. But it's not an eerie kind of fog. It's it was nice. It was a pleasant experience. And Monte Sano has a similar look and feel to it. So they picked a great spot to put the underground base. This is Green Mountain, Alabama. There's many caves here, hiking trails. We are in Green Mountain
In Alabama.
in Alabama. So I'm going to finish out this video with some interesting information. I was just Googling Green Mountain AL UFO to conclude and tie the knot here. And there was a remote viewing done by, it looks like, Tony Rodriguez, or at least his name appears. Maybe he was the organizer on Conflict Radio, so you can see that. And what's interesting about that content is that it was distributed enough such that when you Google this, the AI result is claims and discussions about a Stargate or a secret underground facility under Green Mountain in Huntsville, Alabama. And a whistleblower revealed an egg-shaped object was seen. So that's interesting. I didn't see any, I mean, it was an interesting place, kind of some evidence of ancient site, but I didn't have any evidence when I was there that it was kind of smoking gun or conclusive that there was something under there. I mean, I have no doubt there is, but I'm just being objective as a researcher. And maybe that's by design. Maybe on top it's people hiking and that's part of the cover. That would be smart. That fits into how they would operate, their modus operandi. So I encourage more people to go physically. The remote viewing, even Tony says that by itself it's not evidence, but it's a data point. It's good for corroboration. So I would recommend we talk to the locals. That's always interesting, and you never know what they might say, which might lead to something else. And of course, if we can get any whistleblowers or information from people who have been there to corroborate JP's testimony, that would be amazing. But especially if they're going to open these facilities up, this is a great time for independent researchers to get their hands dirty and go to these places. And Huntsville is a great place to visit physically. I mean, of course, I'm not discouraging remote viewing. It's definitely cool, but to go there physically is also cool. And then if you really want the icing on the cake, go there and physically and do remote viewing while you're there. And I know of a couple situations where that has really worked. When a group went with Dr. Sella to the Bujeji Mountains in Romania, they weren't actually remote viewing, but they were connecting to what was physically beneath them. So someone who has that psychic ability or ability to remote view objectively, that they could be connected to what's underneath, that would be great. I'm grateful and thankful to all of you watching this that makes this connection possible with this discovery and disclosure that we're going through. Exciting times ahead, and that's my wrap up for the trip to Green Mountain in Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you. Have a great day.